Hey everybody, it's Monday and we are back with a 6.5 special edition because when big news drops in the enterprise tech space, not as any part of the tech space, but definitely that enterprise tech space, Pat and I are there, and when we can, we are here for you. HP came out first thing, very early this morning, first sips of coffee, and it said they're acquiring Poly to basically deliver on the promise of hybrid work. Pat, I sent it to you first thing. You probably already knew, but it caught my attention right away. Two clients, two that we advised, two that we worked very closely with, coming together as one. Let's talk. What you thinking?
Yeah, so first off, I did appreciate you flagging. You get up a little earlier than I do, so I definitely appreciate it. I am surprised, absolutely 0%. And you know, us analysts, we always have to do victory laps where we have to. But I'll be fully transparent. I went to every PC maker and I said, you need to buy Poly for some very obvious reasons. And maybe we break it down like that. You know, what's happening in the marketplace? First and foremost, we're on hybrid work, right? There was pre-COVID, there was remote that was hard, but guess what? Hybrid's going to be even worse and harder because you have to distinctly look at the needs of every employee, regardless of where they are. So, you know, like, what does that mean? I think what it means is, and you know, if you've done a video conference with a room full of people, you realize that one square might mean 10 people. One square doesn't mean one person that are all the same and equitable, and that's tough. And you need brand new equipment to do that. So essentially, whether it's employees or IT, they need to match this growing demand for hybrid work experiences out there. So that's the fundamental thing, that there is going to be growth in the market.
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple of really important points. I think one is we're seeing a philosophical shift in how hybrid and by means of hybrid collaboration technology is entering the enterprise. Having come from a background in the UC space and the collaboration space, I can tell you 2 decades ago, this was almost entirely facilitated by specialty VARs. There were specialty telco VARs and there were specialty AV integrators that did the room systems. With the advent of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Slack, we have seen IT sort of take the leadership role, with those specialty firms becoming increasingly niche. It doesn't mean they don't have value, but increasingly niche in the role that they're playing, because solutions like Zoom and Microsoft Teams find themselves to be core working products to the enterprise's ability to communicate, to collaborate.
Daniel, wasn't it really a facilities-led thing as well before we brought data into the conference room?
Absolutely, and that's a great little rundown history or memory lane. But oftentimes the audio visual, which would include systems like before Cisco it was Tandberg, Polycom before it was Poly, and those would get implemented. They would be on dedicated networks, specialty networks. It was only in around the mid 2000s that H.323 or the IP standard became the norm, and still at that point it was done primarily by AV companies. But we saw the writing on the wall, and now we've seen companies like HP, by the way, for years kind of flirt with telepresence. They've come out, I believe it was Halo at one point in time.
That's right.
And you know, again, but mostly it was Polycom, it was Life Size, it was Tandberg, and you've seen these companies, Video, remember they were there for a while.
Exactly.
And these companies came and they went. But what is happening now are the winners are being kind of acquired and brought into the fold to compete more directly in this traditional and growing SaaS IT, enterprise IT space. And this is a great example where you got HP patent. If I could just point really quickly on where I see opportunities. One, the channel, right? Poly was a channel-driven organization, but like I said, a lot of specialty AV. Now you've got this massive channel. You've got huge retail, like the Best Buys of the world. You've got massive online retail. And of course, Poly could be found on those. And then you've got the opportunity to say, hey, what does hybrid work look like? Well, you've got room-based hybrid work, and then of course you got home-based hybrid work. And Poly had a portfolio for all of these things. But in the reality is, when you're buying from a CDW, or you're buying from an Ingram Micro, or you're buying through channel from a Best Buy, how could HP leverage its global reach, its global channels, its strategic bundling of the products and hardware to say, hey, we're going to give you a laptop, we're going to give you a microphone, we're going to give you a camera, we're going to give you services, we're going to layer in Zoom or Teams or whatever else you're using, and you're going to send every employee what looks like a real meeting kit. And then, by the way, Pat, take that all the way up the stack to presentation rooms, training rooms, educational facilities, lecture halls. It's a big opportunity for HP, although it will be different because the sales channel, they're going to have to evolve it. It's not going to move the way they're used to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see it going both ways. I think you're going to see the traditional telepresence folks have to change a little bit, but I can see absolutely HP is going to bring this full lineup to their entire channel, and that doesn't miraculously make it work, because there are a lot of services and important things that the AV channel folks do. I want to hit on supply chain for a second. And it's so funny. I started on this "you need to buy Poly" kick about 2.5 years ago. Once Poly started to get into their newest equipment is Qualcomm based at the SoC, and Android based from an operating system, and it's multiple experience. So if you want Teams, you want Zoom, you want 8x8, it can automatically do those. And heck, we're even seeing Google and Cisco lighten up a little where they have interaction between the two. But the cool part is, from a supply chain point of view, once you get into this Android and Qualcomm SoC, that is entering the stage of high volume, right? That's everything that the smartphone market is about. It's everything that the PC market is all about. And once you start getting that volume of more industry standard type of components, that's when you can really lay into the cost reduction. And you and I just got off the phone with Enrique Lores, and I asked him about the COGS improvement. I think that they could see about a 30% improvement in COGS, all things equal. And by the way, if you were paying attention to Poly earnings, they've had massive supply chain issues, right? And it's not necessarily because they didn't plan, but it's because they just don't have the pocketbook and the leverage to drive against big suppliers that are out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that to the attention too, because that has been a bit of a holdback. And actually, both companies, HP and Poly, have had significant order backlogs. There's been a few times where we've looked at HP's earnings, and of course, the stock has risen. Lores has done a great job, along with Alex Cho, of leading the company. But there has been times where we've been, looking comparatively across the industries, respectively, and saying, wow, HP got hit a little harder by supply chains than, say, Dell were at different times with PC. And Poly, you and I both get a regular interaction with their current CEO, Dave Shull. And he basically mentioned, especially on the lagging edge, there's been a few of this is one of those perfect examples, though, Pat, where a single SKU of some lagging edge controller ended up holding up entire manufacturing and delivery of products, pulling sales back for the company. Of course, combined, I'm guessing, under the leadership of HP, Pat, Poly will have more resources, will have more supply chain strength and negotiation, because their volume and revenues just went up exponentially.
Yeah, and if I can add just one more thing before we close out. What I'm interested in the future as well is how HP brings Poly technology to, let's say, HP notebooks, right? HP announced an initiative and some improvements on their notebook experience called HP Presence. And they also they announced a full set of room solutions called HP Presence. They hadn't shipped them yet, but I know that they were sampling and they were gearing up for high volume manufacturing. first off, I'm wondering what's going to happen with, will presence, the room solutions be brought out? But secondly, which again, like I thought was even cooler, was how over time they would put poly technology into the notebooks. Because in the end, you and I are getting back on the road, and while I love using my Dell 4K camera everywhere, it's bulky and it's a pain, and moving it from room to room in the house is a pain as well. I'd like a better audio and video solution built into my HP notebook.
Yeah, so I know we got to wrap, but I agree with you. How can that be one embedded into something light and mobile? Because,
Yeah.
I straight up asked that, about this acquisition. Is there a technology? Is it going to be physical bundle of external camera, external mic? Because I still feel like that's usually what we have to do to get a good enough quality for this kind of interaction.
Right.
However, at the same time, is there something that could be learned from the technology that's being put into these embedded and devices to go into those machines?
Well, a lot of the magic, and I keep boomeranging, but I'm kind of excited here, is, I've talked to Dave Dave at Poly, and he talks about one of their core IP are algorithms, right? It's algorithms for AI. It's audio algorithms that have been 20 years in the making, particularly on the audio side. Imagine bringing that to a notebook platform. It's super exciting. So, Daniel, this was fun. I'm losing my voice. This is real time. This is a special edition here. HP acquiring Poly. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.